Hello everyone, hope you're alright. In today's video I'm going to show you my front yard and tell you what I have got in here and how the plants are doing in the end of June. So as you can see, this is our front yard and we recently got it done when we moved house in January, and we got it done in February. So before it was like overgrown garden space. If you are interested in how we made over our garden, I will include the link in the description box where I have explained in detail all the changes we did. So here you can see we have got a circular border in the middle and 4 squares around it, and this is the car park area, and at the front we have got patio area. So we have got 2 side borders, and this starts from here. I have got a nasturtium vine planted here. Nasturtium is an annual plant and it's climbing vine. You can let it trail over or you can help it to climb on something. So I'm hoping to train it up on this fence. So I think it will look really beautiful once it grows up the fence and it's all covered in those beautiful orange blooms and the beautiful bold green leaves. So next to nasturtium I have got a euonymus. This is an evergreen and it can get huge. So I planted it this year and it was really tiny when I planted it. It has already got double, but it will grow more eventually, covering all this area. So that's why I have planted an annual plant next to it. So meanwhile it grows and fills this space, the annual plant will do its job. Next I have got this big planter here where I planted all my spring bulbs. So I will include a link in the description box if you are interested in checking out how I planted it with spring bulbs. I have got nearly 90 to 100 spring bulbs in here, and I had daffodils, tulips, muscaris and lots of alliums. So daffodils were done first and then tulips and muscaris, and now you can see these beautiful alliums are in bloom. There are 2 colors of alliums here, yellow and pink, and they are a little bit different in texture. You can see the yellow alliums are more like a cup shaped and more like compact flowers together. However, the pink ones are more staggered flowers. In fact, I can see some bulbs developing on the pink stalks. Maybe I can save them for planting on later. However, I'm going to change it. Once all the alliums are done blooming, I will cut all the foliage off and I will dig out all the bulbs and save them, and I will plant them differently for next year, and I will plant something else in this container, maybe some evergreen which can stay here for much longer. Next I have got an ornamental grass, and this doesn't get huge. It grows like 2 to 3 feet tall and produces really lovely spikes later in the season. So I may move it later on because the rose plant is kind of covering it, but we will see how it goes. And as you can see, my rose plant is absolutely loaded with blooms. Some of the blooms are starting to open and there are loads more which will open soon. So there are tons of blooms on this plant and I'm really happy with how it's doing, and I think it's loving in here. And this one is pink rose. Next I have got a little planter with muscaris in it. So these muscaris bloomed really beautiful and I really love them. In fact, they are still producing a little bud over there, which is kind of strange for me, but I'm really excited. And I'm also loving these seed heads, so I think they are still looking really beautiful. I have got some petunias planted in here which are starting to take off now as the weather is warming up. So soon this planter will be filled with petunia plants and muscari plants. I will leave them in there, and I think this is really beautiful. Next I have got a red rose, and as you can see it's loaded with flowers. These flowers are already blooming and they are really beautiful and really eye-catching. I think they are absolutely beautiful and lovely in my garden at the moment. Moving on, I have planted a clematis, which is a climbing plant, and I'm trying to train it up above the fence. So once it starts producing more and more, it will be absolutely beautiful. I have got this Patio plant planted here. It was really tiny when I planted it, and it's got like 3 or 4 times its size, and you can see it starting to bloom now. It has got really beautiful disc shaped flowers which I'm loving at the moment. Really beautiful tiny pink flowers, and they change to these lovely seed heads. So I think this plant is really beautiful. Next I have got this Hookah purple palace. It has got this really beautiful bronze colored leaves, and this can get like 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, so it will fill out this space. And you can see the more mature leaves are starting to turn green, and the young leaves are like more on bronze side, and the underside is really beautiful as well. It's more like purplish, and this is like really beautiful plant. It does produce lovely blooms later in the season. Next I have got another little planter with nasturtium in it, so I'm hoping to train it up on this side of the trellis. So basically this year my plan is to cover the trellis with nasturtiums, and the next year I'm hoping the clematis will take over, so then I won't have to plant an annual plant. But let's see what happens. For the time being my plan is to have these nasturtiums climbing up the fence. And here I have got this lovely beautiful camellia. It produces really beautiful white flowers early in the spring, and when I planted it, it was really tiny. It has got double in size, but it won't produce any blooms this year, so I'm hopeful for next year. Next I have got a peony which I planted from bare root, so it's not much at the moment, and I think it will take over once it's established. And here is Hosta, which is bluish foliage and really beautiful foliage plant, and I think it's a must in any garden. So as you try to plant flowers in the garden, there are some foliage plants which you should plant in the garden, like blue foliage, red foliage, yellow foliage, and different textures, which offers really beautiful contrast in the garden. Next I have got this planter planted with sunflowers, and you can see they have got huge, and I think they will be producing birds really soon. However, it has been really stormy and these plants have been suffering a lot, but still they are doing really well, and I'm really happy how they are tackling the weather. But it's been really windy and stormy. In the corner I have got a Nerium oleander, which is kind of yellow foliage when it's young, and then it turns to brighter green and it's starting to form some birds. So let's see how it performs during the rest of the season. And here I have got an Isser planted next to the Nerium. Here in this container I have got Echinacea and Asteromaceous. Echinacea are starting to bud up and they will be flowering soon, but Aster are quite late flowering, so they will start flowering somewhere in August or at the end of July, and both of them produces really beautiful white blooms. So this will be a white blooming container hopefully. So let's see how it goes. Next, I have got another variety of Hosta, which is like yellow irrigation, and this is more on green side. It's really beautiful as well. It can get huge, like 1 meter tall and wide. So eventually I will have to move the container out of its place. And here I have got another Hookah purple palace, and it's looking really beautiful contrast to this Hosta, which is more green side, but both of them are really beautiful bold foliage. Next, I have got my absolutely favorite hydrangea. This is Hydrangea Macrophylla, and it produces really beautiful blue blooms. And as you can see, it has started blooming. I'm really happy. This is from last year. This plant has changed lots of places in and out of the containers during our house move. So finally, it has got its final place here in this gravel bed, and it's doing really well. Next, I have got salvia amorosa, and it's blooming for a couple of weeks. It's producing really lovely beautiful spikes of blue blooms, and I think it's a really beautiful plant, and I am thinking to plant more of these in the empty spots which I have still got in my front yard. Next, I have got another planter with pansies in it and Snapdragons. Pansies are putting on really awesome show. These are from last year. I caught them back last year, and they have come back again, blooming really beautiful for a couple of months. And here you can see the Snapdragons. They are huge. They are loaded with lovely beautiful spikes of blooms, and they are the center of attraction at the moment in my garden. Really pretty blooms which catches your eye from far away, and I'm really loving this plant. I'm hoping to plant more of these in my garden. If you haven't grown Snapdragons before, I will highly recommend that you do grow them now. Next, I have got some Phlox. There are 3 varieties of Phlox in here, and they are not much at the moment. We will see how they do later. And a Hookah purple palace doing really well. And next, I have got this planter with cosmos in it. Cosmos are late flowering. They will flower somewhere at the end of July or in the beginning of August, and foliage is looking good. Next, I have got this fuchsia plant. This fuchsia plant has suffered lots of damage during the snowstorm we had in February. It got broken, like half of the branches got broken. So it's doing its job now. It's an evergreen here and produces really beautiful pink trumpet shaped flowers, which I really adore, and I think it's doing okay. And I did salvage the broken branches, and I have succeeded in rooting them, so I'll be putting more of them in different places. And I think this is really beautiful plant in my garden. Here is a patio container which is loaded with alyssums. As you can see, I grew this alyssum from seeds, and I'm really happy with how they have turned out this year. I have got some more plants in here like a hardy geranium and petunias and lobelias, but they are hard to spot at the moment because alyssums have really taken over. But hopefully, as the weather warms up, the other plants will take over as well. But I don't mind it. I'm really loving the alyssum and how is it performing. And I have got 3 more patio containers with alyssums in it and lobelias and petunias and geraniums, but I have moved them from my front patio here because we are getting some work done over the patio there, so I had to move them here on this side. And as you can see, they are looking really beautiful. Petunias are starting to put on more growth now. Petunias are really slow growing if you grow them from seed. And there is a delphinium here as well, which is starting to put on more leaves. So I'm hopeful. Let's see what happens. There is a geranium which is starting to produce a bloom. I didn't grow this from seed. I bought it from the shop, and since I have bought it, it hasn't bloomed for me. So I'm really praying now that it starts blooming soon. So I'm loving these containers, and this one is wonderful, loaded with alyssum. And I have put lots of petunia plants in it as well, which are really tiny and hard to spot, but they will start producing soon. So I'm loving my patio containers at the moment, and alyssums are still in the show. And here I have got another variety of hydrangea. This is Hydrangea Paniculata pink diamond. It can get huge, so I have planted it differently in this square, and we will see whether it blooms this year or not. And next in this square I have got a plum tree. This is a dwarf plum tree, black amber, and it has put on lots of growth this year, but it will actually start producing next year or maybe year after next year. We'll see how it does. But I really love the fruit trees, and I really wanted to plant some fruit trees here in this side of the yard. Here I have got an apple tree which is also dwarf variety, and it's self-fertile, and this should bloom and produce some fruit for me next year, hopefully. And here in the circular border I have got a cherry tree, and I'm really loving to see all those pretty blooms it will produce next year in the spring. And we got it like really mature, which it was pricey, but I think it's worth it. I have planted around it some solidago plants and asterodomasus. Solidago is kind of invasive, so it can take over this border, which I won't mind. And here in the last square I have got a planter with cornflowers, and I'm really loving this planter. It's like a grassy texture, and it has loads and loads of blooms ready to pop open, and some has already bloomed, and I really love these blooms. They are really beautiful, tiny blue or pink or purple blooms, and I think it's looking really beautiful. Last year I planted it in the ground as well and in the container, but it flopped over because I didn't plant it too closely. But this year I have planted it really dense, and it's supporting itself and standing tall, which I'm loving. And I will include the link in the description box where I started these from seeds. So I collected the seeds from last year plants and I planted them, and this is beautiful. So this is the overall view of my garden, and this is looking really beautiful. We have done lots of effort in developing this garden, and basically it's catching the eye at the moment. Everyone is appreciating it, and we are really looking forward to seeing all those lovely blooms. Some plants have already started blooming and some will bloom later in the season. Basically, I kept in mind the year-round interest when planting this garden. So I have got some fruit trees in here which will produce really beautiful blooms early in the spring, and some early spring flowering plants, some evergreen plants, grassy textures, bold textures, and some cottage flowering plants. So this is basically a formal garden design with cottage style planting with year-round flowering plants. We really love this garden and hope you liked it as well. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of my gardening videos. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.